My name's Josh. You may know me as Bright Colt, and I'm so excited to introduce this new series called Painfully Honest. In this series, myself and a special guest each episode, we're going to evaluate your website, your Instagram, basically, and to a degree, your art style, but basically like trying to give you a fresh set of eyes. Because a lot of times when we launch our portfolio or button it up, you show it to your friends and family, and they say nice things about it. And then you show it to clients or people who are trying to get hired by, and they may say nothing, like you'll get the job or not get the job, and you kind of don't know why a lot of times. So the goal of this series is for all of us to learn together, kind of get some handles on like what are the things that you're doing say to potential hiring managers. There's some really good takeaways. Fair warning, these episodes are going to be pretty long, but I think there's a lot of good wisdom and nuggets to kind of unpack here. So grab some popcorn, buckle up, and let's do this thing.
This is Painfully Honest.
Today's guest is none other than the one and only Jason Craig. Jason is a buddy / mentor / just cool talented designer that actually lives in Augusta, Georgia with me. Most of my designer friends are internet friends in this day and age, but Jason and I can actually go have coffee. And right. Jason, can you give me like I am impressed with you. I think you have done cool things. Can you share some of those cool things with the crew and kind of share like what angle and what perspective you're looking at for hiring people?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for having me on here. This is going to be fun.
Pumped.
Like Josh said, like we've known each other for a long time, from getting coffee. I mean, like that's how we kind of got to be friends.
That is true.
Getting coffee. So I mean that's pretty cool how that worked out. So yeah, I am a graphic designer. I lean towards the illustrative side. I would say I'm a print designer. I like to make stickers and things you can hold in your hand, T-shirts, anything you could throw at somebody. I like to make. So that's kind of how I put it. Some of the career highlights, I've had the fortune to work with some major league sports teams. I've got to do some stuff for the Braves, Atlanta United. I've got to work with some big brands like Nike. It's been a cool ride. I've been doing this for over 25 years, and I've been working for myself. Actually, on the 15th of July, it would be 3 years to the day. So nice. 3 years ago, I went in and put in my notice and said that I was going to go out on my own. That was never my goal.
Yeah.
I know a lot of us are like, go out and do what you love. But for me,
your
it was
own
just
boss, glamorizing an entrepreneur thing.
Yeah. For me, it was just the next best fit. It made the most sense at the time, and it continues to make the most sense. So if it no longer makes sense, then I'll do something different. But the context of where I'm working is not necessarily dictating the work. So this is just my situation now. And I like it. Made it through a pandemic unscathed, so I'm happy about that.
Love that. Yeah, and one of the things that I love about, or one of the reasons I'm excited about having you on is because of both the length and just like you've been all over the place in your career. Like if you drive anywhere downtown in Augusta, you can like stand on a corner and see like 3 of Jason's murals, and like so you've done like big outdoor stuff. You've spoken at conferences. You've emceed conferences. You do a lot of like community stuff in terms of like teaching and kind of grooming the next wave of artists and illustrators and designers. You've also like curated stuff, and were you part of the selection process for the local? How would you categorize Westaboo?
It's an art and music festival. Yeah,
so,
art.
You've been inside of like agency life at a variety of different levels too. So you've really worn a lot of the different hats. I'm not trying to just pump you up and compliment you here. I just want people to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I also dug post holes at sign shops. Pulled
done it all, right?
Hot dryer. Yeah, and I was also the creative director at the Metro Spirit, which is our weekly newspaper. So
I've
wore a lot of hats.
Basically anything somebody would want to touch. And one of the things that I would love for you to kind of help us think through the lens of is I feel like a lot of designers, whether they should feel like this way or not, they want to like land the Nike deal. They want to get hired by the big church for a specific thing. They want to go, work with brands that people have heard of before. I have stumbled into some of those rooms, but not nearly to the degree that you have, and never really like intentionally or like applied or gone through that process. So as we're reviewing these, I want to know like the JC, like what are your like 101, like here's how I approach portfolios and here's how I think about things. But also want to kind of think about those through the lens of somebody who like that's their dream is like, I want to get this band to hire me to do this t-shirt, and like, how do you shoot for the moon? So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into some portfolios. So the first one we're looking at today is going to be Avery Harper. And like I said before we jumped on, we're going to look at Instagram first, because I think that's what a lot of people do, whether they get sent somebody's portfolio or you just kind of bump into them or get suggested it. You'll look at the Instagram first, get a little taste of who they are, kind of letting the hair hang down, if you will. And then like the website is where you're a little bit more professional, or that might be like a pseudo resume. So for all these, we're going to be looking at Instagram and kind of getting the hot take, and then we'll be jumping into website. This one, Coffin Cat Art. I love this. We got a couple of little notes about like who they are, where they're located. Definitely feels like a personality behind this thing. It's not just like a mission, if you will, or like a cause or an organization. Definitely seeing a really tight style. Like there's this is a lane they have picked. They're killing it. I would not call myself an illustrator. So it could be off with my note here, but I feel like this is good work. Like it's solid. They've picked a lane. They're doing it. I don't know. What's your kind of notes off the rip?
Well, just to give you a little heads up, you sent me these links and I did not look at any of them on purpose. So I'm seeing these for the first time.
So we'll get real fresh takes from Jason.
I can tell you, let me show you. If you scroll back up really quick, and I think this will be helpful with a lot of folks, kind of like their anxiety. So all the way up, go all the way up to the top. There you go. So a lot of times people look at the follower count and they're like, oh, I only have 226 followers. When I'm looking at somebody's profile, the follower count really doesn't matter to me that much, because it could be anywhere. I know huge agencies that have 100 followers and people who are some of the best designers of all time that have 50 followers. So, I mean, the follower count really, that just shows how good you are at Instagram or how long you've been on it. What I look at is that number of posts and the number you're following. And if those numbers are out of whack, then I'm like, okay, well, something's up. This person's following 26,000 people, you know? What's that about? So I look at that, or the same with the posts. If 94 posts, you know, I think that's a person that tells me that they're kind of very intentional with what they're putting out there. And it lets me know that this isn't just this isn't a dump of everything every thought they've ever had. And that's kind of where I come into it. You know, if you had 9,000 posts, I'd be like, okay, this person, every single mark they make is going on their page.
You know that you're going to see a couple of posts a day from them, and they may or may not be good.
Right. So yeah. So just at a glance, from what you scrolled, I can see that this person is progressing very quickly. That top right, and especially this cat here with the hat. If you scroll down a good ways, like you can see the style change. You can see this person's kind of falling
they're
into
experimenting. We got some little half-tone stuff.
Yeah, and you can see where they're finding stuff they like and trying to figure it out. See, now you get into that,
and this one is not textured. Yeah,
right.
And it's like
right. So you can see this person is progressing.
Let's see some dates here.
Yeah.
33 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's pretty modest. Pacing.
1 day ago.
Yeah.
So this is like a year of progress.
Right. And I think it shows.
Pretty solid. Yeah. No, that's good. I also was laughing internally that you immediately brought up followers, because I've recorded these out of the order that they're going to be airing. And the very first thing we talked about was follower count, because the first example in the other episode has like 20,000 followers. And we're just kind of making a note of like, do you think this person is like booked or expensive? Do you think they're real? Like, what does a follower count tell you? And you immediately jumped into that without any kind of prompting.
Well, yeah. And I can tell you this too, that I used to always, you know, we all have this like mystery, especially of Instagram and social media, of like, how much engagement are we really getting? And I had the chance to curate Good Types account for 10 days.
Okay.
I was in control of Good Types account, and they have over 1 million followers. And the thing that I was very, very surprised to find was that they got about the same amount of direct messages as I did with 8,000 followers.
Wild.
And so that blew my mind. I would think that if you had 1 million followers, it might be 1 million plus, that you just, it'd be all day, 1.1 million followers. And you would think
you'd have like 6 people with iPhones all day. Like,
no, it was about the same pace as what I get on my account. And so that is loco. It opened my eyes to the actual engagement on these things.
And like a like is so much less valuable than a comment, than a DM, than an actual email or like phone conversation with somebody. So as you're looking out there, like trying to land people, in the early days, I had 0 followers. Not that, I've got like 5,000 or whatever now. In the early days, I had none, but I was out there pounding the pavement, baby. Like I can't like sit down and meet with most of the people that I work with, but I was like actively commenting and reaching out to youth pastors and people that I was trying to, like, my ideal clients. I was reaching out to them, and like that's where the work came from. That's where the real phone calls came from. And it feels awkward. Like it feels slightly cooler than cold calling somebody. But if you're in that like hungry zone, like it's you just got to do some of that. You got to be uncomfortable to get where you're trying to go. And I think we all have this illusion. I think it's like a little bit of like the laziness thing where we're like, oh, I could go do that, but I want to work smarter, not harder. Let's use the algorithm in our advantage. Let's leverage these big tools to blast out the information, and then the people will come. And that's not how it works. Like yes, and it is much easier to land people now, but it
changes all the time too. It really like all those things once you think you know them, they change it. But I've been very frustrated with Instagram for a while now, and it seems like that curve of frustration. Like I thought I was frustrated last week, but this week I'm really frustrated. And so, but I see all these people that are saying, "Well, I'm going to quit doing Instagram. I'm going to quit doing this," but at the same time, while I might not be getting as many likes, rarely do I have a client call me that doesn't say, I was looking at your Instagram. They all say that. So you think about that. If they're going as a destination, think of it. It's like the outlet mall. The outlet mall is never right in downtown. The outlet mall is on the outskirts of town. Nobody ever sees it until they go there. But when they go there, they want all the stores to be open. And so that's the same thing. So if somebody goes to my Instagram, it doesn't matter how many likes I have on stuff. They're going to see the things that I'm wanting them to see. Yeah.
And I don't remember if it was you and I talking about this, but somebody I had a conversation with earlier this week about like Dribble and Behance and some of these other places. Like LinkedIn. You're pushing stuff to other designers, right?
Right.
Whereas you get on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, like pick your poison of those. Like you're talking to regular people, and I don't want to be king of the designers, right? And nor am I talented enough to do that. I want to be the best fit for my specific tribe of people. And that means like your all of your copywriting is phrased around like you, the client, and like you're trying to push things up to them that are helpful for them. Like how do you help them win? Yeah. So with all that in mind, I'm with you. Like you could just blank this out because this stuff is sick. And if he had, 80,000 followers and I was just looking at this stuff, or 4,000, I would be like, all those make sense, right? Like this is cool stuff. I can't do it. There's totally a vibe going on here. What was that? So in terms of here's where there's a little bit of a disconnect for me. I would look at this and my impression is, cool, this cat has picked a lane. He is an artist, not a designer. And my line for that distinction is like, artists are trying to get known for a look and a type of expression. Designers are solving a problem and working on the client-led initiative kind of thing. Is that fair?
That's sure. I agree with that.
So yeah, like if I am a hiring manager and I run a magazine or need a sermon series done or have a shirt idea or whatever, I say, oh, cool. Coffin Cat does this style of stuff. I'll call him or her when I need that thing. Okay.
Right.
That's my immediate takeaway. Crushing it. Very cool stuff. I am interested in this art style. I'll keep them in mind for this art style. Okay.
Yep.
Then we hop over to the website. Avery Harper got some similar-ish vibes. And then we lead with brand design. And then we have
this is the same person.
Same person. Like some of these are solid or like cool, like shirts or whatever. Like that's a nice little pin, but and some of them are very different art styles.
Yeah.
Not all of them are logos. And it feels like a pretty big rift between what we just looked at.
Yeah.
And you can have, like we actually have done this in another episode, had a pretty long conversation about like, should your feed be your expression of your personality and photos of your kids, or like a campaign or like an art style or an initiative you're doing like this, or should it be basically like a mini portfolio? Right now it is failing a little bit as the mini portfolio if the website represents what you're trying to land.
Right. I think too that it's okay to do that, but a lot of times folks they'll say that. They'll say, this is my site for my this or that, and then go to my other account for that. But I would definitely have an account that mirrors the things that are on the site. You can still have an outlet for that art stuff, or those, if that's not what you're trying to lead with. But I would definitely, this stuff is good stuff. So I would hate to sell it short.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to where, like, I'm imagining what happens is homie hasn't touched this website in a little bit, found this thing he loved a year ago, and has really been zeroed in on this, and then hasn't updated this to match. And so like like illustration is down here, right?
Yeah.
Here's another just like website. I don't want to say 101, but just like my hot take on websites for creative professionals. I want big pictures, little words for a second. Like you can have like a big bold statement if you want to. You can have a call to action up here. I love to see some navigation up at the top of this site. But you can't, like, I need a big, beautiful grid of this stuff. And it feels like I'm reading a lot.
I'm going to tell you something too. And only because that Painfully Honest logo is up there. When I see that it's a Wix site, I don't take it as serious. I
wasn't going to be that guy because I get very opinionated and snotty about that stuff, but I agree.
If it's a Wix, and like I said, I'm not a web designer. I am not a web designer, and I'm not a web snob. But what I see is, to me, and maybe not as much with an individual as a business, but if I see a business that has a Wix site, then I'm like, well, how serious could they be about this?
Yeah,
it seems like it's a hobby to me if it's on a Wix site.
That's definitely true for for like if you're trying to sell me insurance and you're on Wix, like I'm out 1,000%. If you are a designer and you're on Wix, that tells me you haven't put in the energy or invested in yourself enough to like do it for real. Like this, you're kind of waiting to see if this thing works out or not, like you were saying. But it's not like a total like, ooh, scared, nervous runner. Right. Like it's a different thing. It just like another piece of advice that I give people is like, before you feel like you're ready, open a business checking account. Like start as a sole proprietor and open a business checking, because something happens when you say, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing about me, I'm also very transparent is one of the things that's a little bit different about me. Like I'm not a shall tell anybody anything. I've only ever had one website in my entire life, and it's the one I currently have. And I've never had another one. I built that website in 2016, and that's the only site I've ever had. It's and I haven't updated in 2 years.
Let's do this. Yeah. I should have done this with all of my guests, but
you should have. So there I am.
All right, so I'm gonna give you my hot takes here. If I try to say I don't know you, I would say, okay, this guy is a personality. It's not so much like art style, and he's got speaker up here, illustrator, designer. Okay, cool. Like that's the first thing okay. That's kind of fun. Yeah. And like the work is sick even already. You led with about. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Not work or shop, which feels like the main ones. But so that like nods to me like, oh, he cares about kind of the approach a lot. And you've done some things. And I think this could even be a longer section. And then speaking is the next one. As a career wise, like do you want to get like more like speaking engagements, or do you care more about like project work?
It's both. I think it's sort of like we all look for like validation is a lot of it, but also I think whenever a client reaches out to you, they look at these things and they're like, okay, here's a guy that's bagging up chicken bones. What the hell is this? But then they see a little splash of Nike on there. They see a little splash of Atlanta Braves. And I think that the big mistake a lot of folks make, and this is just how I handle myself, is that if they did that Braves stuff, you would go to their site and it would just say Braves. You would just see, I did something for the Braves. And for me, I want to put interesting things on here to where people want to dig a little bit. They want to dig. And this is sort of how I've done my career. Right. And so they click up. So now if you click on work, you've seen a few things, and then you're going to scroll down in there and just casually you're going to like run across a Nike swoosh right there, you know? And to me, it to juxtapose the biggest things and the smallest things kind of tells people that I'm very grounded. I also keep that Instagram feed down there at the bottom just to kind of show them what's current.
Keep the fresh stuff.
Yeah. And so to me, I'm not selling a style per se. I do have a style, but I'm not leaning on that style so much. And so the personality goes a long way. You know, there you are right there. Look at that guy right there in the middle.
Yeah, this is for Atlanta United stuff. So and I think that's a good sign of like a seasoned freelancer is people are hiring you because they like the way you do work. Like there's 1,000 ways to get to a good like finished product, right? But every designer's got their own little like tweaks and quirks. So people are hiring you for a combination of your style and your personality. And so you've done a really good job like balancing those things. And you know, I don't know, like I think you put this is probably an improper way you put the stank out there. Like I know if I want to move in closer or further away, but not in a way like I have where it's like super like I don't know, I overthink and like write a bunch of stuff. You've just kind of like done it enough, and so like people know what they're signing up for. All right, so
not to keep talking about me, but I even changed my my intro thing on there. I even changed that to I had some kind of like hire me thing, and now it just says bold, authentic branding in Augusta, Georgia, with too many spaces behind Augusta.
This is I see that. This is something that I can also I think a lot of times people just like crank these out, and myself included. Like I have had really bad bios or no bios, and I think that it people like it sends a signal, and the amount of times people see that, but we'll spend hours working on this and 40 seconds working on this. And like this is this little set of stuff up here is what people see the most whenever they see you reposted by somebody or somebody shared your stuff. And then they come over here, like take a second and try and like reevaluate. Like on somebody actually called me out recently. I have none of this stuff, and like I should be using those to highlight work or like get people.
That stuff, my stuff on there is just stupid. It's just me standing in the bread aisle at the grocery store and me pouring cups of water. It's bread and water. It's the dumbest stuff. But you gotta have fun with it. You gotta have some personality.
But that's also that you're using the tool, and like we were saying, you're putting the stuff out there that people are aware of. So Avery,
sorry, Avery, we got off on him.
We did. So what I would love to see is a big fat grid of like your 3 to 9 like favorite pieces. And whether or not you want to get hired, people are going to hire you for the work they see you doing. So if you're like, this is the new me now, like doing this type of stuff, lead with that. And you're like, oh, I also can do these things. Here's some examples, or just do this. There's a world, like obviously I don't think you're like, and is super big into the web stuff, like you could have a Cuphead style website and everything's paper cutouts.
Yeah.
That would be sick. That'd be
Yeah.
very memorable. But again, like it just depends on what you're trying to land. If you've got contacts in the church space and you're trying to get that kind of work, cool. That you might not get hired a ton for this art style unless that becomes on trend. Jason, I know you're not really in that space, but church design, in some senses, is very trendy. And so like something's like hot and everybody's doing it for 6 to 9 months or a year or whatever, and then they move on to the next thing the next year.
Right.
And so like if you're an artist in that space, it can be tough because like you're getting known for a style. Maybe you hit pay dirt and like that style hits, but then the next year, like, nobody's going to like come back for that type of thing.
Right. But I mean, I'm a spot illustrator too. And so I understand that like a lot of times people will come to me and they'll want a very specific thing. And they're always really nervous to tell me exactly what they want. And it's like, man, figuring out what you want is the hardest part, though. Tell me what you want, and I'll draw it. And so I do appreciate that. Whenever I look at Avery's work, I like things that come to mind where if I was doing a big menu or I was doing restaurant branding, and I made the logo for a restaurant, and then I was in the minutia making the menu and stuff, I would hire Avery and say, hey, can you draw me these little 20 support pieces?
Yep.
And that's where I could like pepper those spot illos like throughout that brand. That's the immediate thing that I see from.
And that's another from like a business standpoint, is like somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want a t-shirt design. You say, cool, $200 or $500 or $1,000, whatever. And you're doing one of these bad boys for them. Like that's cool. Like that's an exchange. You can do that and make some money. But what you just described is, hey, I do branding and, I can help you do your logo. Sure. That's like one project, or I can help you do your restaurant's t-shirt, or I can come in and do like a full suite of stuff. Here's 2 case studies on my website of like, I did all the pieces. And even if you do this, actually, this is a question I'd like to serve up to you. Would you rather, as you're thinking about people for Westaboo or hiring them in your various roles or speaking gig, whatever, if somebody has a really killer project or idea, but it's clearly a fake client or clearly like, Willie Nelson did not hire them for that t-shirt or whatever, does that deter you at all? Or do you like, how much weight goes into they've done this thing for real versus this is a good idea?
For me, I think that they have equal weight. I don't think I do see where you could say, okay, well, this person did this, but they didn't have the client meeting. They didn't have a boss. They didn't have a deadline. I can see getting caught up in that. But at the same time, I'm able to do my work with a client involved, with a deadline. I'm able to succeed and do that stuff. So for me, it's early on, you're not going to be able to navigate your boss. You're just not. Your boss going to walk in and they're going to say, hey, make that green thing red. And you're just going to say, okay. But later on, where they say, make that green thing red, I'll be like, what problem are you trying to solve here? And they just say, well, I went to Georgia, so I want it red instead of green. And I'll be like, I'll fix it up for you. And so it takes a lot of understanding to kind of get to where you are in a position to be an expert and to make some of those design decisions with take your clients involved. Yeah.
Trust.
But at the same time, you think about it. To me, it's the difference between Tom Brady throwing a touchdown with 11 guys bearing down on him, or Dude Perfect throwing a football into a trash can 70 yards away.
Excellent analogy.
They're different, but they both take skill. Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, cool. So I just went back and looked at Avery's form submission. Filled out like what is your dream gig? He would love to be full-time freelance developing brands for small businesses. So with that in mind, I think you do a mix of logo work and some of this photography of like stuff in real life, and then some of the types of illustration styles. So don't get as tight as you are here, but like definitely mix some of this stuff in with some logos. And as possible, like start doing some of what we described, where it's like, here's a full suite of stuff. Like, here's what it feels like to have me come in and work alongside you for 3 months on like making every part of your, your coffee shop cooler.
Yeah.
I think that could be a big way to go. Church graphics, I would maybe put those as a separate page on the site. But this is something that I always advise people who are like nervous to niche down, is that work. Like if you've got a bunch of contacts in that space, maybe that's where you started. That work is always going to show up. Like that people will come back to you and ask you and talk about it and say, hey, you still do this? I saw you don't talk about it on your website. You can still have that conversation and take it on. And that honestly allows you to kind of cherry pick the best ones. Same thing is true for me right now. Like I've spent 3-4 years now working really hard to get known as church logo guy. It's worked. Like churches are coming to me for logos. I love it. And then every so often I'll have somebody ask about websites or ask about business logos or other things. And at that point I can look at my like workload and say, can I take this on? Is it worth it? Is this project exciting to me? Do I like this person? Like it just kind of like you have the option to do both. But it really helps that you've got your like bread and butter that you've decided, like, these are my people over here. It helps you inform all kinds of other decisions. Avery, thank you so much for dropping this stuff in here. I know it can feel like you're standing in front of everybody naked, but
I think the approach to I do a lot of restaurant branding, and I think there's a lot of similarities to church branding and restaurant branding. Like you said, like there's a lot of trends that happen in church branding. And I think it's the same thing with restaurants. And part of it is, as designers, we have this like romantic notion that we want to make the next Apple logo or the next IBM logo that 100 years from now design students are studying. But the truth is that
you just hope that business is in business still.
They need people this week.
Yeah.
Like, they need people to like it right now. And so to them, it's way more important that people like it immediately than 50 years from now. And so I think that those are very similar in those two industries. That's a good thought you always have.
I feel like doing an excellent job means the next version of their logo like has to pull from some of the elements that you did together. Like 10 years from now, they're like, well, we can't not have clovers in the Sheehan's logo anymore. Like people know us for that, right? But like, even if you're not around to get to do that one. All right. We just spent 30 minutes on Coffin Cat. I thought we had some great notes. Let's move on to Jon here. Man, you secured a very short handle. Good job on that. I see this a lot, the like list of things that you are. I think that's fine. Helping people do good, do more, pro media fire. And this guy's a company man working for his agency, loves the crew there. And I think, love my current job, sort of like pseudo art director, senior designer type of thing. Would love to keep the full-time job and just land some work that's more fulfilling and pays better, which I see that a lot in agencies, in churches, wherever. Like, I love my home church. I love my agency. I love whatever. And we've got friends who work at like big corporate America as designers, and then they do wild projects on nights and weekends. And usually the type of work they're trying to fill is like either more interesting or better pay, or in some cases both. And I think that's definitely the case here. So Homie spends all day, every day. Pro Media Fire is a church agency. So churches will hire them as a retainer. They'll do ongoing stuff. At least I think that's, if I remember correctly. So like they'll hop in and basically be like an out of house, like handle all the ongoing graphics and needs and video and stuff like that. So that's what he's got going on most of the time. We got the little 3-up grid, which is super nice to look at and so hard to keep going for long periods of time. Oh, we've even got them stacked here. This is 2 weeks worth of planning. I love that.
They got them numbered too.
Oh shoot. That is
is it dated or numbered?
I think it's 2021. Yeah, it's got little dates on there. All right, so I'm seeing a pretty broad range of style. We got some like illustrated pieces, some text-driven stuff. Some of it feels pretty heavy and serious. Some feels kind of fun. Obviously doing like a little like everything in a field of white thing for a second. Yeah, this is definitely like graphics heavy and like appropriate for, now we're playing around doing some fun stuff. And we're scrolling pretty deep in the profile here. But yeah, like looking at this, what I think this person, reading this, looking at the profile here, I'm like, okay, cool. Like he does sermon series and like social post style artwork for churches. That is what his bread and butter is. It's interesting. I've got a little bit of insider info because this guy actually had some highly ranked pieces in the best church logo contest, or I don't know what you want to call it, but it was like the show we did last fall where we were looking at like, all right, who's got the best church logo right now? Had a bunch of people submit. I think some of his stuff was finalists. I don't see any logos in here, and that's fine. It's just interesting that the two are true.
Yeah.
What are your hot takes on old Jon here off the rip?
Well, I'll say I just at the first glance, I like this work. I think it's kind of got it's got that like clean Behance feel. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah,
but
a lot
of times,
what you're talking about.
You click on somebody's Behance profile and they just present things different than you. And
slick.
I really, it's slick. It is slick. And the grain, like that life, that speak life, like just like a lot of that right there is
that's cool.
That like to me, like that's just a really cool thing. I like that. And then it looks like he's working with the captions pretty good too. Looks like the captions got a lot of intention with them. So I mean, yeah. So everything seems to have a purpose, which I think it's a good way to connect with your audience. I kind of do sort of weird stuff with mine where I quote a lot of rap lyrics and things that I don't think most people even know I'm doing. But
Jason, your stuff is like it's. I always know there's a story behind it, and I don't always get the joke. But I'm always like, oh, this guy's thinking about something. There's a reason here.
I'm always sort of cryptic with it, and it's just all I'm trying to do is stand out. But yeah, I think that you can really see an evolution in style with this too, just like Avery. As you scroll down, you can just see it get tighter and tighter, and you can see that he really pushes himself to try different things. And I think that, I mean, look at the different, and
I'm guessing somebody bought an iPad around this time.
Yeah. Nowadays, I just assume every single person is using an iPad.
Yeah.
I just assume everybody is.
Okay. So here's logo work way back in the day.
Yeah. And the mix of pictures, you got the baby pictures mixed in there. That's cool. Go back up just a little bit. That's a really cool triptych.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on photos versus having like dedicated accounts?
I mean, it's as a person that uses all my social media to promote my work, it is nice to remind people that I am a human being and that I have a family and that I have kids and all that stuff, because it does get kind of taxing sometimes to be identified by only your work. And so I think that if you're going to sell yourself as a person, you really need to sell the whole person and not just the work part. I think it's good for people to know that I want to know if the person I'm working with has a family or if they have 6 roommates. It makes a difference to me. And again, it goes to that Wix thing. It lets me know if they're a serious person or not. And I know that you can have 6
or
roommates.
Or if it's like a hack account, right?
Right. I know you can have 6 roommates and still be a serious person. Maybe you're just really dedicated, but I'm trying to find out about the person I'm working with. And sometimes just showing those things makes a big difference.
I've hired people that were mid-tier, like okay designers, but they had kids and a mortgage, and I was like, this homie knows how to work. Like homie's going to show up, and like that's different from I just graduated, or I'm still in school, or I haven't landed like a full-time gig ever, nor do I have a real big need to, like that. Right. Those people are going to operate differently regardless of the quality of output.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you. I I personally I draw like some hard lines that not everybody agrees with. I typically follow friends. If I want, like, I know you, Jason, like if you had a separate account, like of your life, I would follow both. But typically, like if you've got like some crazy ratio of like, oh, like you got a bunch of just like stuff mixed in of your life, and I really love your art, but you only post art like once every like 6 posts. I'm out, dog. Like I'm not gonna like filter. I'm scrolling through my feed with no context. I'm seeing photos of humans I don't know, and like all.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way when I click on somebody's profile and I'm looking. I'm like, how did I even begin to follow this person? And then you scroll down, and you see like one really cool thing. Is like, oh, it's because of that post, and it's like, well,
unfollow
drop this one.
And to me, one of my answers to that has been stories and videos are where I like kind of hang out with people and like show around like my life. And like my kid just walked in here, and like I want people to associate me with the work, but when your first impression, I want it to be work and kind of the mission. And that's where I'm slightly different than some of these people we're talking about. Like I said, I want to do church logos. So church logos is what we do first. You're saying I want to be hired as for my style and for my kind of approach and eye on life. So you're like leading with your face. The dribble. Okay. So this is an interesting one. Homie doesn't have a website, which is again, fine. Dribble is kind of what he put instead of the website. And again, if you're not actively looking to land a bunch of work, I think the biggest hang up for me is like, say I land here, I'm like, oh my God, he would be perfect for this thing. I have to hire I'm Jon ASAP. I gotta get old Hambone on my project. I don't know what my next step is. Like, I agree. What email? How do I get in touch with you? So even if you're paying $12 a month for a Squarespace site, or like literally anything that just says like, hey, this is me. Here's 9 of my selected pieces and the way that I want you to connect with me.
Yeah. And you can, it does not cost that much to sign up for a Dribble Pro account. And I can see that this Dribble account has a lot of intentionality too.
And it's very different.
It is very different. Mine's the same way. My Dribble account looks a lot different. The work is the same, but it's presented a lot differently. Okay. But if you look at mine, like if you go to somebody that's got a Dribble Pro account, it pops up like a portfolio website.
Yeah, and I've seen that, and that's a good answer for people, especially that don't have like budget or web skills or whatever to do it like the other way. Like, because so that's just okay, right? There's the hire us, and that. I mean, I get that. I get clicks on that. I don't get a lot from Dribble, but I still do get those. That's cool. I might need to look into that, but where were we? We were back on. No,
we get distracted real easy.
Easy.
Now I tell you this. See, like looking at this stuff, like I think that these logos are solid. I think. I like the typography. It seems like he's got a really good grasp of typography and access to a lot of different typefaces. Yeah. So
I would be interested to talk to Jon and be like, all right, dog. I know you want to land like more fulfilling work or whatever. And like, does Pro Media Fire do brand work? If so, like my advice would be, like try and land one like good logo project a month, and you've already got contacts in the church space. Like work out a deal where it's not competitive with your day job, and like go after this stuff because like this is sick, and like I think the graphics are fine. I'm more hyped on the logo work, and like there's a couple of pieces that I think are pretty interesting over here. But like that would be my advice. Like get you a Dribble Pro, and kind of like name the thing. Like hey, I do like. It looks like a lot of church stuff. So like ministry branding or like it's specific lockups for sermon series. Some people do that. Like, I don't know.
And I don't know which work is the day job and which work is outside. And so I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, that's fair too.
What would be the fulfilling work? Cause it looks like he really enjoys doing all of this stuff.
Yeah. And like if I'm his boss watching this, I'm also thinking like you better enjoy your day job work, right? like I don't want to play second fiddle to your nice weekends thing. Like I've lived with that tension, but
I've done
Yeah. So that's the thing though. Like if you're super happy where you're at, the first thing you want to do is keep the umbrella going. Like keep your day job happy, show up out of, if nothing else, just like honor and respect for the people that are paying your paycheck. Like show up, give them full effort, whatever that looks like.
There's also been a huge
quit
shift.
And go somewhere else. You know?
Yeah, there's been a huge shift too, because now if you didn't have social media, that would be weird. And before, years ago, not even that many years ago, maybe a decade ago, to have an Instagram page or to have a place where you were showing your work,
you're like,
bosses were immediately threatened by it. Oh yeah, they'd be like, "Here, sign this." I've had so many bosses that are like, "Here, sign this." I'm like, "I'm not signing that."
That's wild.
Like, and I mean, that was the way it was. It used to be they'd be like, "Sign this that you're not going to work for anybody," and that's the way that you used to do. And now I don't think anybody would do that.
Bosses are losing the war, man. Now everybody's working from home and like,
well, part of it too, that I think that having the benefit of experience is when I was, I mean, even just a few years ago, I couldn't afford to have an iMac, a MacBook, an iPad, have all the programs. It just wasn't possible. It was not something a person could have. You had to go to a business to work because they owned all the equipment. And I was 30 years old, and I had an intern walk in with their own laptop, and I was like, I don't even have my own computer. And so that's what's changed, is that this equipment has become attainable. These programs have become attainable. And so now you can build a career without a brick and mortar, you know,
and people are much more comfortable hiring people that they can't like go grab. Like people are more
which COVID shot that. COVID shot that into the stratosphere. People, they want you to go away when the job is done. And it sounds horrible, but that's the benefit. You are not going to go in there and change their company. You're not going to go in there and blow their minds, but they're going to be so happy whenever you don't show up the day after your job's done, because they don't want to have to find something for you to do. And that's the biggest difference at a full-time place. Once the job's done, they're like, okay, now what do we do with this person? And working for all these other people, it's like, you know, what's the next project?
Everybody just gets more efficient. Yeah,
they do. They get really efficient, and you can benefit from that because our overhead is so low.
I would hate to be in the commercial real estate business right now. Put it that way.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Juan Luis Salas Bartha. Bro, I'm so sorry if I butchered your name. I have seen this guy popping up around the world quite a few times. Oh, he's got like all the ways to contact him. Designer Pretzel Deco. I've seen this. This stuff's cool. Yeah, got a Behance. All right. So here is something, Jason, that I am aware of that I would love. I don't know if you have any like advice or takes on this, but like I see talented people that are non-US get passed over for stuff, or like the assumption is there's going to be a language barrier. The work's not, you know, I don't know if they can work inside my system, or like, what about like, how do I pay them? Like all that kind of stuff. I've done it enough times now that I'm like, it's just like anything else. Like you're going to have some people that are good at their job or don't show up or do show up. It's just like you spend the time getting to know them and book them and you'll be good, and like just over communicate in some cases. But like I've gotten into good rhythms with people in Brazil, the Philippines, all over the place, just because their work is good and like they feel like the fit for the thing. Do you have any like hot tips? How does somebody combat some of those like preconceptions walking it? Like if I'm a hiring manager and like I'm sorry, not from the hiring, from the designer's standpoint, how can they help assuage that without like avoiding their culture?
Yeah. I think that, well, like I understand exactly what you're talking about. I have there's so many Australian designers that are just illustrators that are for the past few years have just been crushing it. Designers from Mexico City specifically. There's so many times where I will see a rebrand of something and I can just, I like it so much. And I'm like, I bet you this designer's from Mexico City, and I don't know what it is. I can just tell, and then you click through, and that's what it takes you. Same thing
with
with
the hotbeds
Germany.
of music back in the day.
It's wild, it's wild. The movements that they have. Design and art goes in movements. It's not, like we said, trends, but there's bigger waves of style. And we're all kind of coming out of this Swiss style where everything's super simple, and we're getting back into this like maximalist, brutalist sort of stuff, like what he's got. And some of those places, they're just on a different wave than us. Mm-hmm. So if we're up here,
if you walk down the street and you're like seeing it, and there's all the and so to me, I think that it's very refreshing to have somebody that's coming out of a different wave. So if our wave is up here and their wave is here, it's a huge perspective difference. And so I think that's a benefit that you could play off of. I think that Behance is a great place for international designers to show their work. I've noticed a lot more international profiles show up there.
And then just in general, I would say like there are benefits to being in different time zones. If you're in Eastern Europe, and you're doing your job, you're 6-7 hours ahead of me. That means whenever I come in the morning, everything that you just did on your day job, it will be in my inbox fresh in the morning. So there's a lot of benefits to having that change of scenery. But I think that it is a great thing to have different perspectives on things. Now, I mean, there's some stuff that even just being regional, people, like we're in Augusta, so just people immediately assume golf, and sometimes golf is not necessarily, it's like we're more than just golf. And so you can tell whenever somebody comes in and it's like they're in an igloo designing something from memory, and it's like it's kind of generic. Right. And that could be anywhere. But I think that you get somebody that's in a big urban core like Mexico City. You get somebody that's in a German illustrators. I have a few friends that are over there that are just doing stuff way different than anybody. And I think there's a lot to benefit from that different perspective. I really like the inclusion of the mix of the black letter with the serif. Like that's something that I've always really liked. And there's some stuff like that it's like if you came out and did it, people would be like immediately like, you're copying this style. Yeah. They would see it immediately. Like, right. And so I like that stuff. I like that. And then you see how like even just that use of just Helvetica there, that on the right, the blue and red, it just mixed in with all the other stuff. It stands out. It stands apart. There's like that brush script. Like I love using system fonts and just seeing how many system fonts I can sneak in.
What's the best meal you can make with Spam and peanut butter?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So all my branding, like for myself, is all system fonts. Like I don't use anything store bought. It all is on my computer.
Store bought. There's also there's like a little bit of like blue collar swagger with that stuff too. Like so. It says something about you if you're like, hey, like this is the zone that I'm proud of.
I think so. Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting about like working in church world is like this type of stuff, like people want it for that shorter shelf life you're talking about. And so you got to have a fairly broad range, because you'll walk into some projects and they're like, and especially for people who are on staff, like you're not getting picked for a job. You're getting picked because you're the designer down the office. Right. And I guess it's true for agency life too. Like, client wants, golden unicorn that looks like it's 3D rendered and there's confetti and like it looks like it's been a photo render. Like those projects will come across your plate, and then you'll have like gotta have an American flag for Memorial Day, and then you'll have like whatever is kind of on trend. So there's kind of a wide range of stuff. So seeing that in somebody's portfolio is always like that's going to help you get hired. And it's super nice to me too when somebody comes to you with a project and say they pick 3 things from your feed and said, hey, we want something in this neighborhood. Like that immediately sets you up for a way to win. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give people is like, post the type of work you want to get hired for. Like, don't be sad if you wish you were doing more interesting work and all you're doing is regurgitating what you did in your day job. If you don't like your day job work, right?
Yeah.
So like, show me the type of crazy ideas that you wish clients would say yes to, and they'll start coming to you for it.
Yeah. The only thing that I have that I would say from like a hiring standpoint is a lot of this looks like stills from a video, from a really cool hype video. It looks like a still from a video, and that is cool. But sometimes I need proof that this person isn't designing in Photoshop, and a lot of this stuff, it could be done in Photoshop a lot easier than it could be done in Illustrator, and so a lot of times I think that certain designers get down this road where they get really comfortable with Photoshop and they can do things really quickly in Photoshop. And then it's like, can I get this as a vector? And that would be
love that you're touching on that, because we haven't talked about that, but that is one of the weird, sometimes that can be an underdevelopment if you grew up as a church designer, because you're asked to do a bunch of graphics all the time. Not asked to do some of the other things. So sometimes like a lot of these cats, all they know is Photoshop. Yeah. And they'll like do like logo designs in Photoshop and other things. And, it's just, you don't get that well-rounded thing. Like this is like, you're saying like this is sick, but is that like paths in Photoshop? Cause like, how does that go other places? Yeah. And I also think that I think you can have a decent career without ever learning those things. But you're right. Like you've said in the past, like everybody should learn how to draw. I agree with that. I'm working on it. Everybody should learn Illustrator. I agree with that. Like everybody should, and it's less of like, you should, know how to run a website. You should know how to get behind a camera. It's less of like interdiscipline type of stuff. It's more of like, to be a graphic designer, you really need to have a good grasp on InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator. Even if you don't open them all the time, you need to have like base level understanding. And I do think it takes a pretty keen eye, like you just identified, to say like, is this Photoshop or Illustrator? And a lot of people are not going to notice that, even if they're communications directors. So yeah, I feel like so he's got some assets on Creative Market. He's a graphic designer. There's no like big call to action here, which again is not like a deal breaker for me, but I would want to see that on a website. But then I see, Behance is the website. So again, Behance is fine. I feel like there's a 50-50 chance I fill out this thing that you ever see it. Same thing for the Instagram. I'll probably message you on Instagram. But again, like I'm always going to push for a very clear like statement of like, I want to get hired for this stuff. If applicable, like your rates, like people want to move into situations that they know what they're getting or how it works, because I think a lot of times people are hesitant or like just click over to the next profile because they don't want to get on the phone with you and then find out you're too expensive. And then it's sad. And they're like, I don't know how to tell you I'm too poor, or I don't think you're worth it. Both of those are uncomfortable conversations. And there's ways to get around that. But the easiest one is just like post rates, or at least starting rates. Right.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if it's a lot different with church design as it is other industries, but I do know that conversation it needs to be just approached like a normal conversation. And the thing that always trips me out is if I asked you how much does a hamburger cost, there's so many different answers, but whenever I tell you the price, you automatically are going to understand. If I say it costs $1, you know that is different than a $16 hamburger. Now, if you ask me how much a hamburger costs and I say $99, you're going to come back at me with a question. Yeah. Why does this what does this hamburger cost $99? Tell me about this $99 burger. I'm not going to get it, but I want to know about it. Like there are people out there eating $99 hamburgers. That's fantastic, but I'm probably going to go back towards the $16 or the $1 one. Yeah, so and it should be this.
Well, I was going to say, like, if you're negotiating a deal with Nike and like you are, like managing some of those type of relationships, like I would, like I've seen your work for Atlanta United and for the Braves, like. I think most people, if they were told, we will for sure use your work, like here's the parameters, like they would do it for free. I would do it for free, right? Like that's just exciting project, super cool portfolio piece. I know that, a lot of times once you get to that point, they do pay you, and they're some of the best ones about paying you in reality. When it's those like little guys that are trying to get you to do it for free. But like with the exception of that, like those you have to negotiate. It's a weird project. It's a weird relationship. You're really just trying to kind of like not lose your shirt and still get to the chance to do some good work. For stuff like this, where you're working on a more like pedestrian level, whether it's small businesses or churches or whatever else, like there's a range that everybody's expecting. Like I remember back in the day when there was, 6 guys, 10 guys that everybody knew of. And like, they were the crazy ones doing church graphics, right? Now there's like a gob of people, and tons of churches hire people for single projects. And so there's an expected range of quality and rates and deliverables for a lot of the same type of stuff. So you can easily say, hey, like it's $500 for a sermon series, or $250 or $750. Some of those big churches will pay more than that, but you can know that like there's kind of a normal range. So it's not that scary to have a starting point,
right,
somewhere around there. And like, just think about the things that people normally hire you for. Develop a process to where you have that, whether it's not as posted publicly, but it's easy access. So it's not this weird, like negotiated song and dance. I can't tell you how many times sales calls have gone just like it removes all the pressure when it's not like this, like how much do I get for, like you had you're building rapport for 30 minutes and then you get into the like wrestling match kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nobody that I know that I want to talk to enjoys that process. Especially designers. Like we're particularly like weak at that. And so if you can pull that piece off the table by just saying before you ever get on the phone or before it gets in, like this is kind of the range you need to expect, or here's an exact dollar amount and deliverable, whatever.
Yeah.
Like then you're just focused on like, are we a fit? Like, do I like you? Do you like me? How does this work? Answering questions. And it makes everything easier and more comfortable.
The thing that takes a lot of time and it is difficult, and I guarantee you would have a hard time with this, is that when those people call, when the sports team calls, the job that you would do for free, you have to be okay with not getting that job.
Yeah.
And
being able to walk away is a big deal.
You do. You have to be able to not not get hung up on the ones that weren't a fit or got away, because there are a lot of opportunities out there that just aren't a good fit, and it would be
great. They can
great.
smell that desperation on you too.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not necessarily always money. Sometimes it's their deadline. Sometimes it's what you have going on. If I was about to go to the beach and a big client called and there's my kids getting ready to go to the beach, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to the beach. And you have to be okay with not getting that work. And
the good clients will come back and tag you back in 6 months.
They always will. They always will. And if they won't, they weren't a fit.
Yeah. You don't want to work for somebody who is like angry that you're spending time with your family.
Yeah. And there's so many people, and I've done this where it's like right now I have two projects I'm working on, and I got it down to these 2 projects so that I could focus on them because they're big. And usually I'm the bring it on, but I really want to be able to focus on these 2 projects. And so I'm telling people it'll probably be like October.
Yeah.
And for some people, they can't wait till October. And I understand that. But other people, they will be back in October.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're back in October, I've got them written down. They'll be at the tip top of the list. But you just have to be able to say, okay, maybe I'm not going to get this. Maybe I'm not going to paint every mural. Maybe I'm not going to do every single logo. And then there's some stuff that you definitely want to have your list of you would never say no to. And if it's the list of people that I have not been able to work with, you would have a heart attack. You'd be like, how did you not drop everything to work for that? And it's like,
I believe it.
I can't drop everything. And and that's the thing.
You
that's
got to
always
take care of your people that signed up and did it the right way.
You really do. You really do. And I have people that that are small businesses that have paid way more in my bills than these large companies have. And it's a nice feather in the cap to be able to say that I've done those things. But honestly, I think that whenever Nike, any big company like that, Under Armour, Coca-Cola, anybody, I think that when they go to look at you to see what kind of work you do, they are way more impressed to see that you're working with the mom and pops up the street than the mom and pops are that you work with Coca-Cola. So if I'm opening up a hot dog stand and I see you do Coca-Cola work, I'm going to be like, well, this is cool, but I don't think I could afford him.
Yep.
Coca-Cola looks at your stuff.
Seeming impressive, right?
Right. Coca-Cola looks at your stuff and is like, oh, this is a man of the people. We want him. And so a lot of folks are like, oh, I don't want to do this low level, what they think is low level work. They want to do the cool stuff. But honestly, it's
a lot of times you brought up before. Cool stuff too.
There's a lot of stuff. And it's like you brought up before about you want to get these big clients, but you think about it. And, if you go out fishing for a great white shark, you might only catch one a year, and that might not be enough to feed your whole family. But if you go fishing every day and come home with 5 little bass, you'll be fine. And so the trophies are cool. I mean, literally the trophies are cool to have, but the lady at the bank likes the little checks. She likes the consistent stuff that comes through. And lady at the bank never looks at my check and goes, "Oh wow, the Braves paid you." She just cashes my check, And so in closing here, though, I would love to hear, like, if you had advice for people who say, like, I've got this big fish, and maybe it's like, I don't want to get so singular that it's like, I have to work with this band before I die. But more of just like, I would love to do some of those types of projects ever. Like, what can they do to either, like, are you knocking on the door? Do you like get in good at the right, like, conferences and like get known from other designers? Or are you just submitting free stuff and like mailing it to Nike? Like, what do you do? You just chip away. You just keep the small touches. You just keep on trying to be in their orbit. Yeah. And then at some point you'll get noticed. You don't even know, but you'll get noticed. And then it'll just happen. You'll just be sitting there and the phone will ring and it'll say, Atlanta or Beaverton or whatever it is that you're chasing. And somebody will call you or a buddy that says, oh, hey, my cousin works there. Yeah. And one way or another, it'll happen if you are consistently trying to be in their thing. But the biggest deal is that when they call, they're calling because of the stuff you've always been doing. They're not calling because you can replicate what they're already doing or because you can do it. They're doing better. They want you. And so imagine if think about your wife. Like, at some point you had one shot to walk up and say something to her. And you didn't walk up and try to say the same thing that everybody else walked up and said. You walked up to say something to be you and to say, this is who I am. And I would like to hang out more. Yeah. Same thing. When Atlanta United called me and they said that we need something for the dog month, and I'm like, all right, I'm putting a crown and a gold chain and a fur coat, and I'm going to do all these things and a ring. And they let me do 6 posters. No, most people are like, you're an idiot. Yeah. You have one shot to work with these people, and this is what you're going to do. And like, yeah, that's exactly why I'm going to do that. Suit and get straight laced. I have one chance. I'm going to the moon. I got one flag to put down. It's going to be my flag. Yeah. And so you would say to these people, like, cool, I'm in college right now, and my dream is one day to, work with Nike skateboards or like have a skateboard deck or whatever. Yeah. You need to have a distinct art style that, and to some degree, a personality. You've obviously got to be putting work out into the world somewhere. Yeah. I think, like, do you have like a list? And I'm not saying you need to give it to us if you do, but like, do you have like a list of like creative directors at these companies that you're like, okay, cool. Like, I know she goes to this conference and she lives over here. Like, I need to make sure like I'm over here in this area. Or is it like truly feels random in some senses? A lot of times it does feel random, but it does. There usually is a I can trace it back. I can find the stones that got him across the river. And every now and then somebody will call and say, I was flipping through Instagram, I was flipping through Dribble, and I liked your work. And that's whenever I'm like, you like my work? Because you can see from my site that I'm putting my personality forward. And so if anybody says, oh, well, so-and-so said you're great to work with, that's my business model. But if somebody says, I really like these shapes you made, then it's really fulfilling, because it's like, oh, wow, they like these choices I made. And it makes a difference to me when that happens. It makes a big difference to me when that happens, because it shows me that the stuff I'm putting out is good. People aren't eating in my restaurant because it's trendy. They're eating at my restaurant because the food is good.
Like it.
Right.
Or not because Becky said it's amazing. They're like,
exactly.
I smelled it and came in. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's to answer your question.
Everybody wants like the 4-step process, and people look at you like, okay, Jason speaks on stage at X number of conferences a year. Of course, like there's 100, 700, 2,000 people in the crowd, whatever. One of them works at Nike. Like, it's easier to connect the dots that way.
Yeah.
I was hoping for some kind of great like listicle to share with the people, but
no,
sounds like it's the same old deal. Show up, work hard. Sometimes doors open up. If you keep
I wish
up.
It was before I started working for myself for years. I would pick the brains of people that do work for themselves. And my biggest question is, where does the work come from? Mm-hmm. And they would always say, it just shows up. I wake up, my email is dinged. And for years I was like, that is not any kind of answer. That is not something I can build a business on. I can't build a business on the work just shows up. And so I think that I think consistency, putting out, like, there is something to putting out the work you put out there is what you're going to get back. If you put out trifold brochures for real estate agents are going to call. If you put out logos, brand directors are going to call. And so I think that being well-rounded in your portfolio, having some packaging design, having some product stuff, some variety in how you apply those illustrations, I think is helpful. Yeah. And I think that just being yourself, but also showing that you're well-rounded is gonna make a big difference, because when a company decides they want to work with you, the cost of it is usually not the biggest factor. Mm-hmm. And so I would say just keep putting out stuff that keeps you well-rounded. Don't put out stuff you don't want to do, because you'll get a call. You don't see me put out a lot of album artwork because I don't want all those calls. I do some of it, but it's I'm very choosy about how much of that I put out there. But that's it. There's, even if you do have a shortcut, even if your first day out of school, you get to do this cool T-shirt design for the Super Bowl, whatever it might be, the next day you're right back where you were the day before.
You need relationships. Yeah. You need,
and at the same time, I can't draw every Braves poster. I can't draw every Atlanta United poster. Like, they need variety. They're going to go to somebody else, and my feelings aren't going to be hurt. Like, I got to do that thing. Yeah, you pretty much got that one try, and that's that. So they've got in-house designers, and if you want to be that, they got job listings on LinkedIn all the time. So
there you go.
Well,
dog, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. I know we went over on our time here a little bit, but I think that we have some juicy nugs in here, and I'm pumped about this series. And man, looking forward to hanging out on live. Guys, thank you again for submitting stuff for the show. I know it feels like you have like offered yourself up. You're like standing in front of the crowd naked. I get it. Like, we've all been there, and I appreciate it. Hopefully this was constructive. Here I am, absolutely crushed. I hope this is constructive and was not too harsh. Anyway, guys, love y'all. Adios. That'll do it for today's episode. Jason, thanks again so much for jumping on and sharing your notes and wisdom with us. If you guys want to check him out, I've got his links down below in the description. He is, again, fantastic, talented dude. If you need to hire him for a project or to speak, he's done it. He does a great job across the board. Been doing it for a long time. If you guys can't tell from the show today, guys, we got a couple more of these rolling in. I'm really excited about them. If you would like your portfolio to be up for consideration and included in one of these episodes, just go to brightcoal.com/honest, and that's also down in the notes here. Guys, love y'all. See y'all next episode. There's some other videos to check out. Peace.